Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at your winter storm Aubrey, which is impacting parts of the northern plains and stretching down all the way into the south central United States in the form of severe weather. Then we're also going to be looking at your temperature forecast and then touching on a potential well, it could be a tropical storm. It's actually your nor'easter right off the coast of New Jersey right now, and that could have the potential of turning into a tropical storm in the near future. A very small percentage chance, but definitely a chance nonetheless. I also made these new weather graphics, so tell me if you guys do like them down below in the comments. Now, we're going to start off here with the National Weather Service. We'll go from west to east over California, over Northern California, and then into Southern California and Southern Nevada. You have your red flag warnings. That's for enhanced, you have an enhanced risk of fire weather danger. Then in those browns, which are scattered across Arizona, California, and then also into parts of southern Texas, you could be seeing some wind advisories, so just some gusty winds. Then hard freeze warnings in those purples over parts of Utah into the southern Rocky Mountains, like of New Mexico, and then also into the panhandle of Oklahoma and northern Texas. Then also in those dark blues, you have freeze warnings where your temperatures could be getting down into the low 30s into upper 20s, stretching all the way down into Texas and then near the Mexico border, and that's all associated with Aubrey. Then the severe weather side, or the rainy side of Aubrey, that's where you have severe thunderstorm watches. Those are in effect for Missouri, parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then parts of Texas. That's where you could be seeing that scattered severe weather, and we'll be talking about that near the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned. Now you have freeze watches in effect, and that's for parts of Wisconsin, into northern Illinois, most of Iowa, and then into Missouri, parts of Nebraska, and Kansas. And then finally, where your winter storm warnings and watches and advisories, they're up near North Dakota and South Dakota. In those lighter purples, you have your winter weather advisories. That's where you'll be seeing 1 to 3 inches over the next about 24 hours. Then your winter storm warning in effect for parts of Nebraska into Wyoming, most of South Dakota, most of North Dakota, and then even parts of northwest Minnesota into those winter storm warnings. Then you have a blizzard warning in those reds over there. That's where you could be seeing less than a quarter of a mile visibility, and you'll also be seeing that over about 3 hours, so you'll definitely be seeing blinding visibility, and you don't even have to have actual snow falling for that to happen. You could have a bunch of snow already on the ground, and the wind picks it up and blows it so to the point where you can't see a quarter of a mile in front of you, and that's how you could actually get a blizzard warning up in those areas. Then you'll have a winter storm watch in effect for just surrounding the winter storm warnings, and that's where you could be seeing 3 to 6 inches in the next 24 hours. And then finally, over in the east, where it's fairly quiet, we do have a bit of advisories. Now, these advisories over here are related to our nor'easter, located right off the shore of New Jersey and Delaware, and that's going to be associated with some coastal flood advisory and some flash flood watches through parts of southern New Jersey into Delaware and parts of Maryland. And then also for Florida, you also have some coastal flood advisories, and then a rip current statement over parts of southern Florida. Now, we're going to look at our winter storm, and it's actually a blizzard. It's Blizzard Aubrey. Now, we're going to look at your European model first. We're going to look at your European, your GFS, and then finally your NAM 12KM model. Now, we're going to go in 6-hour increments for all these models. So starting off for tonight, you're going to be seeing your heaviest snowfall over parts of North and South Dakota. And as it keeps on advancing, you see how that heavy snowfall is really isolated to parts of North Dakota and South Dakota. Originally, if you remember, a couple of just about 2 or 3 videos ago, we had this bullseye right over Minnesota, northern Minnesota, but now the bullseye is actually right over here. So that's a big change in where the bullseye is. Now it's over parts of North Dakota and South Dakota. Now we're gonna go 24 hours out now, so this would be for Friday morning, and you see how it continues to push snow onto North Dakota, intensifying bands on the backside of this into Friday night, and then it starts to push out still some moderate snowfall over parts of North Dakota and Minnesota, and then turns into some flurries, and then some mixed rain in there. And it's actually a bit widespread snow. You see over parts of Wisconsin actually getting in on some flurries. Probably nothing that's going to accumulate over Wisconsin or even parts of eastern Minnesota where the temperatures really aren't cold enough for it really to accumulate. And actually, these red areas, these red lines right here, and then into North and South Dakota over here, these are your 32-degree temperature lines, okay? So you see how most of the snowfall in these areas aren't actually, they're not in 32 degrees or below. So you're not going to have that sticking, or it's going to be a very wet snow, most likely mixed in with some rainfall. Now, we're going to continue to move on into Sunday morning, and you see how it's really scattered at this point, most likely nothing accumulating, and it's just going to be some light flurries, switching into some rain showers as we get into Sunday night and into Monday morning. Now, here's your snowfall totals from the European model. Down in Wyoming, you have about 1 to 3 inches in those blues, and then in those darker blues, you're getting into 46 inches, 6 to 12 inches about in those purples. And then once you get into those pinks, that's about 12 to 24 or 27 inches. And then in those aquas, that's about 27 plus inches. So you see for a good swath of Minnesota and then into most of South Dakota and North Dakota, you're actually seeing about 1 to 3 inches widespread. Then you get into some higher snowfall totals where, if you remember from the models, there was a lot of banding in this area. So that's why you're seeing a heavy snowfall totals over these areas. And you're seeing upwards of 2 feet of snowfall. Some areas could receive 3 feet according to the European model. And it's not too far-fetched. It's not like this is the craziest model. We have the GFS, the NAM 12KM, and actually a lot more models showing isolated areas seeing over 2 feet of snowfall. So it's not like the European is just overestimating here. Now, here's your rainfall totals. I wanted to show this because of the severe side of this system. So anywhere north of this is going to be in the form of snowfall pretty much. So this will be in snow. So don't really, if this isn't really going to be rainfall. South of here, this is where it could be rainfall. So this is where you could actually look at this and say, oh, I'm going to have 3 inches of rain, or I'm going to have half an inch of rain. So over parts of, especially Illinois and Missouri, where you're going to have some severe weather bands setting up, you could have about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall over some isolated areas. Now, we're going to look at your GFS model, and this is through a website called tropicaltidbits.com, a great website, just like Pivotal Weather, and they show different weather models, and it's all free, so it's a wonderful website to use. Now, this is by tonight, you're seeing pretty much the same story, where over North and South Dakota, you're really seeing that heavy snowfall come in. But what the GFS model is really picking up on, and it's not too reliable on this, it's not really the best model to pick up backside banding, but it's really showing backside banding into parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota, which isn't really its strongest point. And I really don't agree with the GFS when it's showing snowfall in parts of central and southern Minnesota that's around 6 inches. So I'm not trusting the GFS for the back end snowfall, but really for this area of North Dakota and South Dakota, that's where you could really rely on this model. And as we move on, you see how it really has that backside banding, and it's a really cold biased model. You saw with the European model how it was mixing into some snowfall. You really don't have that with the GFS model, and as you see, it kind of is. It's a colder biased model in this for this storm, and it really has all those 32 degrees that's stretching all the way down into southern Iowa and into northern Illinois, and you see as it keeps on going on. But yeah, you see around 1 to 3 inches over, oops, I don't know, that is the highlighter tool. I want the pen tool. Yeah, so 1 to 3 inches widespread over into even northern Iowa. I really don't think that this is going to happen. I'm more confident in this area getting 6 plus inches, but these areas getting 1 to 3 inches, I really don't agree with that from the GFS model. So I would be more reliant on the North Dakota, South Dakota for this rather than parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, here's your total accumulated precipitation over the next 84 hours, and anywhere south of this, basically, you could trust it for your for your rainfall. So you do see how it's generally Illinois and Missouri seeing the heaviest rainfall. Now, we're going to look at your NAM 12KM model. This is a higher resolution model, and it's one of the best models to pick up banding features, so that's why it's going to be the more accurate. Now, this model only goes out 84 hours, and so you can't really do a long range forecast. Of course, this one is a higher resolution model, so it needs to be closer to the actual event. Now, we start off, you see some heavy banding and for parts of South and North Dakota. Now, as we move on, you see how it continues through North and South Dakota, a bit of mixing precipitation in those purples and into those reds or pinks. Now, as we keep on moving on, you can see those banding features, and on the backside, you're really seeing snowfall. Again, a pretty cold bias model. You see a bit of rain mixing in, but I feel like it's putting it in too much cold air for this to actually happen. And you see how most of this is snow showers. Now, I really agree with this model. It's a bit overdone, I think, but I agree with the model in the sense that you'll have some isolated areas over 2 feet and maybe some areas reaching 3 feet. But and I agree with the location more rather than the actual totals. I feel like the totals are a bit overdone with this model, especially over parts of southern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. I can slightly agree with northern Wisconsin, maybe a dusting, but not really with southern Minnesota. I really don't think those banding features are really going to set up there. Now, here's your rainfall amounts, and basically you're seeing that I'm gonna trust the NAM 12KM model more because it's great. It's better with banding features because, of course, it's a higher resolution model, and it's showing about 2 to 3 inches of rainfall over pretty much the same areas. It's stretching a bit north now into Michigan and Indiana, but it's also into Illinois and Missouri where you're seeing some heavy rainfall. Now, here's your snowfall total from the European, just to recap them and show what the differences between the models are. The European is showing around 2 feet of snow over parts of northeastern North Dakota. Now, the same thing is happening over the GFS, but it's less overdone. It's more widespread with its snowfall, but it's closer to around 2 feet as the max. But then once you get into Canada, you're getting around 3 feet. Now, the NAM 12KM, you can see it really sticks out. It's really one of the models that have a colder bias on this system, and that's leading to it seeing about 40 inches of snowfall in some areas, which I really don't think will happen. Now, we're going to look at your temperatures because along with this system is going to come with the cold front. We're just going to look at the European model. We're going to go over your low and high temperatures. Now, for tomorrow morning, which would be Friday the 11th, you're going to be seeing those 20s and 30s and even 40s kind of stretching into Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri is pretty much all overtaken. Parts of Arkansas and Texas seeing those 40s and 30s. Now, your high temperatures staying in the 30s and 40s over much of these areas to the west of the front, but to the east of the front, you're still relatively normal temperatures, a bit cooler over parts of New England and the Northeast, where you're going to be seeing that due to your rainfall over those areas. The cloud cover's not going to really let as much sunlight in, leading to some cooler temperatures. Now, as we move on to our low temperatures. Also, by the way, we're only going to go out 5 days, so about to the Tuesday time frame. I don't want to go too far out where it's unreliable. Your low temperatures pretty much stretching through almost the entire country in the 30s, 40s, even 20s as you get a bit northwest. Now, your high temperatures, you see this is where your banding feature of snowfall is, and that's why your temperatures are still in the 30s for your high temperatures over parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Low temperatures for Sunday are going to be in the 40s and 50s, even some 30s and 20s into parts of North and South Dakota, especially for Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, especially in those higher elevations. Your day 4 forecast, or for Sunday, your high temperatures, you see the same banding features over parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. Same thing, basically going to be in the 30s and 40s over those areas. But for much of the rest of the United States, pretty temperate in the 70s, except for as you get further south, where you're going to be in the 80s and 90s. And then for Monday, your low temperatures, pretty cool down over parts of the Midwest, 30s, 20s, stretching into Iowa even, and into Minnesota, and then some low temperatures in the southeast around 70. And then finally your high temperature for Monday, this is the last temperature frame that we're going to do. Your high temperatures in the 70s and 80s, but once you get a bit north, you're going to be in the 40s and 30s, even some 50s for your lows. Now your severe weather threat from the Storm Prediction Center. You're going to start off here with your categorical outlook. You see we have a slight risk over parts of Missouri, even into a little bit of Kansas, parts of eastern Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, and parts of northern Texas. Now we're going to look at your tornado outlook, and you have a 5% risk within a 25-mile or a 50-mile region of anywhere in this brown area. That's a 5%, and then even in these 2%, you definitely have the risk of some spin-ups over tonight and into tomorrow morning. And then your wind outlook, 15% chance of wind damage over the pretty much the same areas. And then hail outlook, 15% for southwestern Missouri into northwest Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and northern Texas. Now we're going to look at your NAM model. This is the same model that we used for Winter Storm Aubrey, but we're going to be looking at your this is especially good for severe weather, as it's more of a high resolution model, and we're going to go out about 60 hours or so. Now, oops, I went back one. And here's pretty much what's going to be happening over the next let's say 50 or 60 hours. So into tonight, you're seeing some severe weather popping up over parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then as indicated by those oranges and reds, you're going to be seeing some heavy bands moving in through Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas into tomorrow morning, and then they kind of dissipate for a little bit as they're trying to get some daylight warming or heating so that they can further intensify. But then as you get into the nighttime hours of Friday, you're seeing them moving over Mississippi and Alabama. Now we're going to look at your hurricane threat from the National Hurricane Center, and this is just the nor'easter, and you have a 20% chance over this yellow area. This is from the National Hurricane Center, by the way, but it's through Pivotal Weather, another great website. I just like how their graphics look a bit more than the National Hurricane Center, but it is the same exact information. So you have a 20% chance over the next 5 days of a tropical storm reaching at least tropical storm status, and that wouldn't really affect the system, as the tropical storm winds, if it did develop, would be confined to the northwest side, which really the system is an offshore system, but bringing in some heavy bands of rainfall and some potentially gusty winds. But your heaviest wind gusts, of course, are going to be around the eye, but even if it was a tropical storm status, it wouldn't really affect it because your wind speeds would be pretty much the same. Your system isn't going onshore, so you're not gonna really see those tropical storm wind speeds. So it's not really that big of a deal if it does actually end up becoming a tropical storm. Anyways, if you did enjoy that video, please consider hitting that red subscribe button on my channel. If you go to my channel page, it is that red subscribe button. Once you click on it, you'll be given the option to click all personalized or none. Please click all notifications so that you never miss a video or an upload that I make. And then finally, please leave a like on this video. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy that video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. And that was Eli the Weather Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.